I mean, our friend Byron Donalds, who has been on the show before this week, said due process is reserved for American citizens. But that is not what the Constitution says.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it should, but that's not what we're talking about. We're saying, what does it say? I mean, if you were the Founding Fathers and you were writing the Fifth Amendment or the 14th Amendment, because both of them use the word person, they knew the difference between the word person and the word citizen. It says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without...
And just like that, the panel obliterated the narrative, trying to rewrite the Constitution with emotion and spin. Not so fast. This wasn't just a constitutional correction. This was a public schooling. One guest came armed with facts, while the rest danced around tough truths. And the so-called tough-on-crime crowd? They got exposed. You just witnessed one of the most brutally honest smackdowns of legal misinformation ever aired. If you're tired of political spin and want raw, unfiltered debate moments like this, hit that subscribe button for weekly takedowns. The fire starter? A Supreme Court ruling over whether Venezuelan migrants detained in Texas can be deported, specifically to a mega prison in El Salvador. A topic already loaded with legal, political, and emotional weight. And then Donald Trump threw gas on the flames with a Truth Social post, accusing the courts of stopping his fight against an invasion of illegal alien criminals. The panel was instantly divided. Some tried to rationalize Trump's tactics. Others called it out as a direct assault on constitutional protections. This wasn't just about policy. It was about who gets to decide what the Constitution means, and whether bad dudes lose their rights based on vibes and headlines. When one guest tried defending Trump's aggressive deportation tactics, they stretched logic thinner than tissue paper. Here's the quote.
Allowed it to happen. They got elected largely on a mandate to correct it, so they're trying creative things. Maybe they're stretching the boundaries of what a 1798 law was intended for, but most Americans know it was...
And there it is. Creative stretching of 18th century laws to ship people to prisons abroad? That's not enforcement. That's contortion. And here's more.
Here, take the Abrego Garcia character that we sent back to El Salvador. He has been in the country, or was in the country, for 14 years. He came in 2011, and it's 2025, and there's plenty of evidence.
Wait, hold on. We're skipping trials now because someone seems like a bad dude? This defense doesn't just wobble. It collapses under constitutional scrutiny. Thankfully, someone finally cut through the noise. One panelist pulled out the U.S. Constitution like a weapon and dropped this bomb.
And the word citizen that says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. That's the Fifth Amendment. The 14th says no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process.
That's not vague. That's not open to interpretation. That's the bedrock of the American legal system. And yet, Trump's defenders tried to argue.
Bad dudes could be sent to a foreign prison. That can't be...
In the country where they are a resident or a citizen? Sure.
Except, that's not how the Constitution works. And the panel called it out directly.
Friend Byron Donalds, who has been on the show before this week, said due process is reserved for American citizens. But that is not what the Constitution says.
Public anger isn't just simmering, it's boiling. People are watching due process turn into a political football. And as one voice nailed it, creative doesn't mean unconstitutional. Because once you go down the road of bad dudes losing rights, anyone could be next. The debate hit a boiling point when the panel tackled the dangerous narrative being pushed. That bad dudes don't deserve due process. And the counterpunch? A direct, unshakable reference to constitutional language.
And it says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without...
That's the Fifth Amendment. Then came the 14th Amendment.
The 14th says no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process.
They didn't say citizen, they said person. And the founders knew the difference. What blew this wide open was the panelist pointing out that Byron Donalds, who had just been on the show, claimed
said due process is reserved for American citizens.
And then came the truth bomb.
But that is not what the Constitution.
End of debate. You could almost see the spin fall apart in real time, stretching 18th century laws to deport someone who's been here since 2011 without a full legal process? No matter how bad they seem, it's unconstitutional. End of story. As the defenders tried to regain footing, the reality crashed down.
Goes, you know, you're a bad dude.
That chilling hypothetical? It wasn't just hyperbole. It was a direct challenge to the Trump-style governance being normalized.
But creative can just kind of morph right into, we're just going to do whatever.
That's what's at stake here. And despite attempts to justify aggressive removals and creative legal maneuvering, the panelist reminded everyone that the Constitution isn't optional, not even for bad dudes, not even when it's politically convenient. And with 78 to 80% of Republicans agreeing that the Supreme Court is the final word, even Trump's base doesn't support the idea of throwing out due process like yesterday's trash.
As many levers as he can.
The curious dynamic that's going on, I think, is...
That's a question worth asking. But it doesn't mean the government can start cutting corners and ignoring rights. This wasn't just a legal debate. It was a line in the sand. On one side, constitutional clarity. On the other, a push for authoritarian shortcuts wrapped in populist rage. You heard it here, word for word, from people who aren't afraid to confront power with facts. They stood up for the Constitution when others tried to twist it. And they did it under the bright lights, with millions watching. If you value truth over tribalism, if you want to see more showdowns where the facts win, hit that subscribe button right now and share this video, because this debate isn't over. And next time, it might be your rights on the chopping block.